Axe and Shield PvP, a controversial part of the 1.19 update, but also a game mode that has rapidly increased in popularity with the rise of Dream, competitive SMPs, and servers like MCC Island and Tubnet. Today, I will be teaching you everything you need to know to become an Axe and Shield master with a little bit of practice. Let's get right into it. Let's start with the very basics. In 1.19 combat, there's a cooldown below your crosshair. When the cooldown is full, you deal the max amount of damage. When the cooldown is at 0, you deal the least amount of damage. Axes deal the most damage, but they're considerably slower than swords. They can also disable shields for 5 seconds by attacking an opponent with a raised shield, and it doesn't matter what the cooldown is at, the shield will be disabled. This generally makes axes better than swords in Axe and Shield PvP. There is, however, a place for swords that we'll get into later in the video. Finally, in 1.19 PvP, there are critical hits. Critical hits, or crits, happen when you attack someone while falling down and not sprinting. They do 50% more damage than a normal hit and are very powerful. When going for a crit, remember to let go of your sprint key, otherwise it'll just be a normal hit. Next we have movement and spacing. Spacing is where you constantly stay just outside of your opponent's 3-block reach. I typically stay about 4.5 blocks away from them. This tempts your opponent to try to jump and hit you, but you'll be outside of their range. You can then jump to hit them and they won't be able to do anything about it because of the cooldown on their weapon. Movement is kind of an extension of spacing, but it's basically just unpredictable strafing. When first going into an encounter, I'd recommend strafing side to side fairly rapidly while spacing. This is likely to give you a free hit. Auto hits are an extremely easy way to ensure you get a free hit or crit when your opponent breaks your shield. This is done by spamming left click on your mouse while holding your shield up. This makes it so that as soon as your shield is broken, you will immediately swing your axe and get a free hit. Combine this while jumping while shielding and you have a recipe for a free crit. A good counter to auto hits are stuns. A stun is a technique where you hit your opponent immediately after breaking their shield by double clicking. It won't do much damage, but they will be knocked back and unable to hit you if performed correctly. In order for a stun to work, you need to be 3 blocks away from your opponent. Otherwise, they'll still be in range to auto hit you. If you need help learning how to double click, I will link a couple tutorials in the description. Backstabs are a great alternative to stuns if you want to mix it up a bit. A backstab is a move where you jump through your opponent to hit them behind their shield. This is done by getting close to your opponent while shielding, and quickly jumping over them and doing a 180-degree turn to hit their exposed back. Another great trick you can use in almost every situation is the punish crit, or P-crit. This is when your opponent hits you, and with the upward knockback of the hit you get a crit off of them. You don't have to jump at all, and it is a really good way to turn your opponent's hits to your advantage. All you have to do is let go of sprint and W while falling and hit your opponent. The best part is, P-crits are very easy to use once you've practiced it a bit. Swords and shield PvP are very difficult to master, but if used correctly can be incredibly overpowered. Because shields block 100% of damage done by swords, and swords cannot disable shields, you should never use your sword when your opponent still has an active shield. You can get around this limitation by stunning your opponent to disable their shield, or by just normally disabling their shield and taking the hit. I recommend stunning though. Once you've broken your opponent's shield, you should immediately go in for a sword combo or crit chain. A crit chain is exactly what it sounds like. Spam crits while strafing around your opponent. This will quickly eat through your health and is very hard to deal with. Sword combos are where you repeatedly hit, not crit, your opponent at max reach, making it near impossible to hit you back if done correctly. To keep your opponent at max reach, you need to be doing the most amount of knockback possible by W tapping or S tapping. In Minecraft, you deal the most amount of knockback when you first hit your opponent after you start sprinting. After that first hit, you deal substantially less knockback. However, if you W tap or S tap, you get around this limitation by resetting your sprint. W tapping is where you immediately let go of W after hitting your opponent, then press it quickly again. S tapping is exactly the same thing, but instead of letting go of W, you quickly press S instead. S tapping is generally a little bit better because it's easier to stay at the max 3-block reach, however, W tapping is also very good. Combine W tapping or S tapping with quick strafes and you're guaranteed several free hits. Don't forget your opponent's shield will reactivate after 5 seconds though. Next I'll be showcasing a couple fights with a player named Cyanide. He's an extremely good axe player and the person who has been training me. Full discretion, he's a lot better than me, this is just a couple close fights I chose. I start this fight by spacing, which ends up giving me a crit for his hit. We start trading, he makes up for the crit earlier by getting a crit of his own. I end up pulling out my sword here, which was probably a bad idea. I get a quick crossbow off, and then finally a bit more spacing with a couple good timings, and that's it. And there you have it. All you need to know to become a great Axe and Shield PvPer with a little bit of practice. If you found this helpful, please consider liking and subscribing, and have a great day!